Picture this. You're sitting on your couch. It's late. You're hungry.
Oh, I know this feeling well.
Right. So you pull out your phone, tap a few buttons, and within like 30 minutes, a hot meal from a restaurant all the way across town just magically appears at your doorstep.
It's completely frictionless.
Exactly. It's frictionless, it's convenient, and it is just a massive, incredibly complex industry. I mean, we are talking staggering numbers here.
Unfathomable scale, really.
Yeah. According to Statista, the U.S. online food delivery market was projected to reach $430.85 billion by 2025. And, since today is June 29, 2026, we aren't even looking at projections anymore. We are living squarely in the reality of this $500 billion, highly lucrative market.
The scale of it really forces a kind of awe when you step back and actually observe it. I mean, consumer habits haven't just shifted. They have completely cemented around that expectation of frictionless convenience you just described.
Yeah, people don't even think about the logistics.
No, not at all. They just expect the food to arrive. It's like turning on the tap and expecting water.
Which is wild. And because the pie is so unfathomably big, everybody wants a slice of it. But here is the problem if you are sitting there listening to this with a fresh idea for a delivery service. Trying to build a full, complex application from scratch is a fantastic way to just light your cash on fire without any proof that your idea actually works.
Oh, it's the fastest way to go bankrupt.
Totally. So our mission today is to figure out the smart way into this market. We are unpacking a comprehensive guide by Enatega, which is a food app development company, and they outline this highly specific strategy for entering the space by building a minimum viable product, or MVP. Okay, let's unpack this. Before we get into the heavy tech stack or the dollars and cents, we really need to clear the air on the actual philosophy of an MVP.
Yeah, that's crucial.
Because in tech circles, I feel like that term often gets weaponized as an excuse for just, launching a bad, buggy, half-finished app.
Right, which is a fatal trap for an entrepreneur. An MVP is not a poorly made product. It is a strategically simplified product.
Strategically simplified, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, the objective isn't merely to build something cheap just to save a few bucks. The objective is data acquisition. You are trying to validate your core hypothesis. Like, does this concept actually solve a real pain point for your target audience?
By stripping away all the extra stuff.
Exactly, stripping away the bells and whistles and focusing strictly on core functionalities. Because doing that compresses your development timeline, it protects your budget, and you build this clean foundation to iterate upon once the data actually starts rolling in.
So you have a solid base.
Right. And crucially, a functional, polished MVP is the asset you use to attract serious investors because it proves your model handles real-world friction, not just, whiteboard theory.
That makes a lot of sense. The Enatega guide visualizes this concept using a pyramid diagram, contrasting the wrong way and the right way to build an MVP. It breaks product development into 4 horizontal layers.
The foundation, right?
Yeah, the foundational bottom layer is functionality. Stacked right above that is reliability, then usability, and the very top peak is brilliant design. Now, the guide points out that the wrong way to build is horizontally, meaning a founder spends their entire budget building out just that bottom layer of functionality.
Which happens all the time. They get 100% of the features built, but the system just crashes constantly.
Exactly. It's totally unreliable.
Right. The user interface is an absolute nightmare to navigate. And visually, it's a mess.
It's like trying to build a car by focusing entirely on this flawless V8 engine and a heavy-duty chassis, but you just completely forget to install the seats or a steering wheel.
Which isn't very helpful for driving.
No. Technically, the functionality of a vehicle is there, but I can't test drive it. I can't even get in it. The vertical slice, which is the right way, is entirely different. Instead of a broken car, you build a skateboard.
A skateboard. I love that analogy.
Right. It only has a tiny fraction of the functionality of a car, but it is reliable, it is usable, and the design actually makes sense. Or, to use a food analogy, it's like baking a perfectly decorated, fully flavored cupcake to test a recipe.
Instead of serving a giant pan of raw, unflavored cake batter.
Exactly. It's a smaller version of the total experience. It's a complete vertical slice through all 4 layers of that pyramid. It gets the user from point A to point B, which allows you to test your core hypothesis. Like, do people even want to roll down this specific hill?
What's fascinating here is how this vertical slice mentality perfectly aligns with understanding user pain points right out of the gate. The skateboard analogy captures the essence of it perfectly because it highlights the feedback loop.
Which is the whole point.
Exactly. By giving the user a complete, unbroken experience, even if it's a really small one, you are testing the actual value proposition. If they hate the skateboard, you pivot.
You'll just move on.
Right. You haven't wasted millions building a car factory for a neighborhood that, only wants bicycles.
Okay, so if we agree that we need to build a skateboard to test the market, let's look at what the wheels and axles are actually made of in the context of food delivery. Because looking at step 2 of this guide, I really have to push back a little.
Oh, really? What's the issue?
Well, the guide claims that to launch this MVP, you have to build 4 completely different digital interfaces. 4 apps. If we were talking about a minimum viable product, building 4 separate apps sounds like the exact opposite of minimum.
I see where you're coming from.
Right. Why can't I just build a sleek user app and then manually coordinate the rest? Like, let the drivers use a WhatsApp group to claim orders, and I'll just text the restaurants.
You could try that, but you would invalidate your own test. You aren't just trying to prove that people like eating food. We already know that.
Fair point.
You are trying to validate a logistics network. If you introduce manual texting in WhatsApp groups, you introduce massive human latency. The minimum in this context applies to the features within the software, but the ecosystem itself is entirely non-negotiable.
Okay, let's trace this out practically so we can see the data flow. Let's say it's midnight, and I'm using your MVP to order a plate of vegan nachos. What is actually happening across these 4 interfaces?
Okay, so your interaction starts at the first interface, which is the user app. This is your digital storefront.
Right.
At an absolute bare minimum, you need to be able to register, search for that late-night vegan spot, view the menu, add those nachos to a cart, process a secure payment, and then see basic order tracking.
Simple enough. I hit purchase, my card clears. Now the kitchen needs to know.
Instantly, the data flows to the second interface, the restaurant panel. A tablet pings in the kitchen.
And they see my nacho order.
Yep. The staff needs a clean dashboard to accept or reject that order based on their current inventory. If they accept, they trigger a status update to preparing, which simultaneously sends a webhook back to your phone so you see the progress, and it sends out a beacon to the third interface.
The delivery rider app.
Correct. The system queries available riders in a specific geographic radius. A rider gets a push notification. They need an interface to log in, accept the task, access map navigation to the vegan restaurant, and crucially, they must be able to update the status to picked up and eventually delivered.
And every time they hit one of those buttons, the state of the order changes on my end, keeping me pacified on the couch.
Exactly. And tying all of this together is the fourth interface, the admin panel. This is your control tower as the business owner.
Got it. So I'm watching everything happen.
Right. You are monitoring the entire flow of data, managing user disputes, maybe refunding the nachos if the driver gets a flat tire, and just analyzing the basic metrics of the night.
So what does this all mean? Seeing it mapped out like that, the WhatsApp workaround clearly falls apart. The latency of manually texting a driver while the nachos get cold completely breaks the reliability layer of our vertical slice pyramid.
It would ruin the whole experience.
Yeah, the ecosystem has to be automated. But that raises an immediate problem. If we are agreeing to build a 4-headed logistics monster, how on earth do we build all of that without spending $500,000 in 3 years in development?
Well, that dictates the entire technical strategy. The guide outlines a 10-step assembly line to pull this off efficiently.
Which moves pretty fast.
Yeah.
Step 1 is defining the concept and audience. Step 3 is creating user stories like, as a user I want.
Right.
Step 4 is wireframing.
Right, but the magic really happens when you look at the specific technology stack they recommend in steps 5 and 7.
Yes, let's talk about that tech stack. The guide specifically names React Native for the front end, which is the interfaces the users, restaurants, and riders actually see and touch. For the back end, the unseen engine processing the data, they recommend Node.js. And for hosting all of this, cloud platforms like AWS or Firebase.
That's the golden combination.
We should assume our listeners know the basic definitions of front end and back end, but why this specific combination? Why is Node.js the default recommendation here for the back end?
Because a food delivery ecosystem is an asynchronous, high-concurrency nightmare. Think about what the server is doing on a really busy Friday night.
It's chaos.
Absolute chaos. You have hundreds of users simultaneously pulling heavy image files of menu items. You have dozens of restaurant tablets constantly pulling the server to see if a new order has arrived. And most taxing of all, you have a fleet of delivery riders whose GPS locations are pinging the server multiple times every single second to update their coordinates on the map.
It's just an unrelenting barrage of tiny data requests happening concurrently.
Exactly. Traditional backend languages often process requests synchronously, handling one task at a time, which can create a massive bottleneck when a large volume of simultaneous requests hit. Node.js operates on a single-threaded, event-driven architecture.
Meaning it handles the traffic differently.
Yeah, it is specifically designed to handle thousands of concurrent connections efficiently without bogging down the system. It handles that chaotic web of GPS pings, payment gateways, and kitchen timers beautifully.
And on the front end, pairing that with React Native solves the time and budget problem.
Oh, it's a game changer for speed. React Native is a cross-platform framework. Historically, if you wanted an app on an iPhone and an app on a Samsung Galaxy, you had to hire a Swift developer to build the iOS version from scratch and a Kotlin or Java developer to build the Android version from scratch.
Double the work.
Exactly. React Native allows your team to write the code once and deploy it across both operating systems simultaneously.
Which explains the jaw-dropping timeline in this guide. They note that a typical food delivery MVP utilizing this stack takes roughly 8 to 12 weeks to build.
Which is incredibly fast.
And they say a tightly scoped version could be done in 4 to 6 weeks.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that 8 to 12-week sprint is the greatest competitive advantage a startup has. The market is evolving way too rapidly to spend a year in a basement coding in secret. By the time you emerge with your perfect app, consumer habits might have shifted entirely.
Or a competitor might have locked down the local restaurants.
Precisely. Hitting the market in 3 months with a polished, reliable vertical slice lets you start learning from real human behavior immediately.
Which brings us to the reality check portion of our deep dive. We have the philosophy of the vertical slice, we understand the 4-app data flow, and we have the tech stack to build it fast. Now we need to look at the economics and the booby traps that destroy founders.
Ah, the money talk.
Yes, the guide provides an estimated cost table for building this ecosystem. The broad range is between $20,000 and $150,000 depending on complexity, but they break down a solid standard MVP estimated at $30,000.
Which is a very pragmatic baseline to understand how resources should actually be allocated.
Let me read this specific breakdown for the $30,000 budget. Development is exactly half, $15,000. UI/UX design is $3,000. Market research is $2,000. Testing is $2,000. Miscellaneous is $2,000. Hosting on AWS or Firebase is $1,000. And then marketing is allocated at $5,000.
I can hear the skepticism already.
Right. I mean, if you are listening to this and you are a founder trying to bootstrap a business, allocating nearly 20% of your incredibly tight budget to market a test product probably makes your stomach drop. Why spend $5,000 on Facebook ads or local flyers for an app that only has the bare minimum features?
It feels incredibly counterintuitive until you look at the guide's list of common mistakes. Mistake number 2 is neglecting user feedback. The entire premise of an MVP is to acquire data. If you build the 4 apps, deploy them to the App Store, and don't market them, you will have 0 users.
And if you have no users, you get no feedback.
Exactly. You essentially built a skateboard, put it in an empty room, and concluded that nobody likes skateboarding.
That's a great way to put it.
You have to buy your way into the laboratory. That $5,000 isn't vanity marketing to make your brand look cool. You need a high density of orders in a very specific, localized geographic area to actually test the stress capacity of your logistics.
Because if it's too spread out, it doesn't work.
Right. If you just get 10 random orders spread across a sprawling city, your delivery riders will spend an hour driving between drops, the food will get cold, and the test fails. You use that marketing budget to hyper-target a single zip code or a single college campus so you can watch the system operate under pressure. You are buying the learning process.
Wow, that reframes the expense completely. It's not an advertising cost, it's a research and development cost.
Exactly.
Let's dig into the other common mistakes the guide highlights because they map perfectly onto this balancing act. Mistake number 1 is a lack of clear objectives and vision. If you don't define exactly what metric proves your hypothesis is correct, like, say, maintaining an average delivery time of under 35 minutes, you won't know if the MVP actually succeeded.
And then mistake number 3 is inadequate scalability planning. We mentioned AWS earlier. If your targeted marketing works brilliantly and hundreds of hungry students suddenly flood the app at midnight, your server architecture must be able to spin up extra capacity dynamically.
Because if it crashes,
If the backend crashes during your crucial test window, you lose the trust of the restaurants and the users permanently.
the classic startup hug of death. Too much success, too fast.
Then there is mistake number 4, overloading with features, commonly known as feature creep. This is a huge psychological trap. As launch day approaches, founders just panic. They think, oh, we absolutely need a complex loyalty point system. We need an AI-driven dietary recommendation engine. We need real-time chat with the driver.
And suddenly you aren't building a skateboard anymore. You're trying to tape heavy leather car seats onto the skateboard while it's rolling down the hill.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And you blow past your 12-week timeline and your $30,000 budget, you have to ruthlessly protect the scope of the vertical slice.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though, because there is an incredibly delicate paradox in this guide. We just praise the idea of moving fast, getting to market in 8 to 12 weeks, and aggressively cutting out feature creep. But mistake number 5 on their list is rushing to launch. How did the team reconcile that? How do you move at breakneck speed without rushing?
It is the ultimate tightrope walk of the startup world, and it requires a very specific shift in mindset. Speed is about scope. Rushing is about negligence.
Okay, unpack that difference for me.
Speed is making the difficult, strategic decision to completely remove the loyalty points feature from the MVP. That reduces the amount of code you have to write, letting you launch faster. Rushing is deciding to keep the complex payment gateway, but skipping the crucial quality assurance testing phase just to save time.
So cutting features is fine, cutting testing is not.
Right. If you move fast by reducing scope, your app still works flawlessly. If you rush by skipping QA, you launch a buggy product where users get charged twice for their vegan nachos. Negligence destroys the reliability layer of the pyramid.
To mitigate that negligence, the guide heavily recommends a soft launch. You release the ecosystem to a very small, controlled group of beta testers first. You let them try to break the Node.js backend. You let them find the bugs in the React Native interface.
Yes, that is non-negotiable.
And you patch those vulnerabilities before you ever touch that $5,000 marketing budget to bring in the general public.
It preserves the integrity of the data. You want the feedback to be about your business model, not about a broken button on the checkout screen.
Speed is about scope. Rushing is about negligence. That is a vital distinction to carry forward. So to bring all of these threads together for you listening, entering this $430 billion market doesn't require a $500,000 war chest on day one. It requires intense strategic discipline. It means building that flawless vertical slice, the highly reliable, incredibly usable skateboard.
Exactly.
You are deploying 4 interconnected digital interfaces for the user, the kitchen, the rider, and yourself, but you are utilizing a tech stack like React Native and Node.js to build them efficiently. You are keeping the features within them absolutely minimal, you are fiercely guarding against feature creep, and you are viewing your marketing budget as the necessary price of buying real-world data.
It all comes back to testing a hypothesis in reality as efficiently as possible. And since the very first step of this 10-step assembly line is defining a highly specific concept and target audience, I think the most valuable takeaway here is a thought experiment for the listener.
Let's hear it.
If you were going to launch a food delivery MVP tomorrow, utilizing this exact 4-app framework and a strict 12-week timeline, what hyperlocal, ultra-niche audience would you target first, just to prove your underlying logistics work?
I love that.
Would you deploy a fleet of scooters to corner the market on midnight espresso deliveries, specifically for night shift trauma nurses at a local hospital? Would you focus exclusively on delivering high-protein meal prep to 3 CrossFit gyms in a single zip code? The narrower the focus of the test, the clearer the data.
That is a brilliant question. It completely changes how you view the monolithic apps currently sitting on your phone. You realize they didn't start as global empires. They all started as a hyper-focused test of a single skateboard rolling down a single hill. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We hope this exploration gave you a new lens on how the tech world actually builds sustainable businesses. Keep exploring, keep thinking big, but remember, start small.